part of the sales leader's job is to encourage and motivate and inspire.
Yeah.
Emails just don't inspire.
Right.
Typing just doesn't inspire that much. But we have to sell people on new ways of working. Here's something I like to say often, is that when somebody is promoted to sales manager, one of the biggest mistakes they can make is stop selling.
Yeah.
I'll explain. I don't mean they're going to continue to call customers the way they did when they were in the sales rep job.
Right.
They have to now sell the people on their team on new ways of working.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So
good point.
here's the point about this idea of a coaching platform. If we try to implement a coaching platform where they don't understand the value of coaching or even want to do coaching, they don't believe coaching is going to help them, then the platform is just going to make matters worse.
Yeah.
We have to sell people on new ways of working manually a lot of times before we automate it. So here's what number 3, teach them the process manually.
Yeah.
Persuade them, sell them. And this is what we do in our workshops. We spend all of our time helping people think differently.
Love it.
About why to do things
right
before we teach them how.
Because if you don't know why you're doing it, then you don't really want to do it.
You don't care how.
You don't care.
So when we're sitting there teaching them how to use the system, they got their arms folded, lean back. I dare you to teach me something.
Right.
I don't want to use this doggone thing anyway.
This isn't going to work.
Exactly.
How many times have we said that when a new system or a new way comes about? I remember even when some of the social media platforms came, no one's going to use it.
Right.
It's used all the time.
And now it's 6 hours a day.
Yeah, right. It's a part-time job.
Isn't that the truth?
Well, welcome to Sales Leadership Insights with Bill Stinnett. I'm his host, Rachel Lamagna. And today, Bill, you wanted to talk about how to get salespeople to use the automation tools that their leadership has provided for them. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Rachel, when I was reaching out to a lot of leaders to research what the best topics would be for this show, I got a lot of different kinds of feedback from different people, but the one that seemed to repeat the most was this idea of, we have spent so much money, literally millions of dollars, on every imaginable kind of automation tool for our sales team, and they won't use them.
Yeah.
And so the question is how do I get people to use these things, right? And so we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about some of the reasons that maybe they wouldn't use these tools, what might be resistance around that.
Right.
And then we're going to talk about, of course, some solutions for how to get people to use those and see the ROI that we promised the finance department we were going to get when they gave us the $5 million to buy this thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love it. Let's dig into that.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
There are two big things I think that people need to think about with this. First of all, is the motive for using some kind of an automation tool like this to begin with.
Right.
So let's use an example, something like an outreach or Sales Loft.
Right.
This is a tool that automates, mechanizes some sort of outreach pattern or outreach sequence.
Right.
So send an email on this day, follow up with a phone call on that day, hit them on LinkedIn on this day. We've got a multi-pronged sequence we want people to follow.
Yes.
And Outreach, for example, is one I have a lot of experience with. It's a fantastic tool for automating such a thing. But what a lot of companies find is they invest a lot of money in that.
Yes.
But then salespeople won't use it. And so the question is why do we want this in the first place?
Right.
And I think that occasionally, well, maybe not occasionally, maybe a little too often, we see that the motive behind this is not really to make salespeople more effective and efficient.
Right.
It's for managers to be able to have, let's say, visibility,
insight
into what people are doing and not doing. So if I'm sitting here a vice president of sales and I've got a sales team, 20, 50, 300 people, I don't know if they're actually prospecting and reaching out to prospective clients on a regular basis. So a tool like that would give me some data to look at. But here's the problem.
Yeah.
If that's the only motive,
is
that so I as the leader can see that, get that information and see who's doing what, it may not be that it's actually helping the salesperson at all.
Right. It could be more accountability for them from leadership, but is it actually a functional tool for sales?
And that is exactly right. So we see that it's not the tool. It's a lot of times the way it's implemented. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I work with a number of companies that use these kinds of sequencers, they're often called.
Okay.
So the tool itself just simply automates the sending of different kinds of content. And that could be, like I said, email or something via LinkedIn or what have you. I find that the quality of the content that is dumped into a tool like that, a lot of times is so bad that salespeople don't want to use it.
Right.
They're embarrassed for their customers to see that. If it sounds too much like a telemarketing call,
right,
then if I'm let's say an account manager for a large strategic account,
right,
and this sounds like a telemarketing call to ask some silly question or just to promote a some sort of a low price promotion that we're having this week, that's not appropriate for the CIO of a very large corporation. And I only have one shot at getting that person's attention.
Right.
So last thing I want to do is send 8 of these nuisance messages to somehow spoil the opportunity to get a chance to speak with them.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be such a drain, I think. And really the point is just one direct thing to get to that leadership person.
Yeah. So it's the quality of what's being put into the system that really is the problem. And I dare say that utilizing a system like that is far more than just a sales initiative. It really needs to be a sales and marketing initiative, or even sales, marketing, and product development initiative.
Right.
So that we're taking information about problems we solve for customers and putting that into the email and the posts and telephone call, the things that we're doing for that outreach. It's not just, hi, we're company XYZ, and would you have a telephone call with me?
Right.
Because the answer to, can I have a telephone call with you, is always no.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have time just for a phone call.
Well, especially if it sounds like one of those recorded or, oh, hi, I have a meeting. Sorry, I'm busy right now.
A canned sort of an approach. And I honestly, I have a pet peeve with this whole thing that's very pervasive right now, which is, can I have 15 minutes of your time?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. People call me and ask me the same question. No, you can't.
No.
Now, if you've got something to offer me in those 15 minutes that benefits my life in some way and helps me solve a problem, maybe I'll talk to you.
Right.
But just for me to give you 15 minutes of my time, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And the busy executives that we're reaching out to don't have time for that either.
None of that.
So that's part of it, is that it's not equipped, or it's not implemented in a way that the quality of what we're asking people to send out, they're going to resist this.
Right.
I would very much resist that at all, if at all possible. The other thing is that when there's a ton of overhead or busy work surrounding it.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example.
Please do.
They might have to literally go out to a tool like, let's say, a Zoom Info or a Seamless AI or someplace where contact data resides, and literally cut and paste, or in some cases retype information from one system into the other system.
Wow.
Before they can even send the message.
That seems like extra work.
Well, it is extra work. And so there's this principle in psychology, the principle of least effort. Yeah. And it's like it's like water, the path of least resistance, right?
Yeah.
And that's often used in a negative sense, like, oh, my sales guys are just looking for the path of least resistance. No, they're actually smart, trying not to waste their time. So this principle of least effort is crucial for us to think about. So here's my point. If we're implementing a system that actually causes more work, then people are going to resist using it.
100% not using it because it's less.
You'd have to be crazy.
Yeah, they need to have less for more. They just don't have the extra time, especially in sales.
Yes.
You are busy trying to make the sale, to do all of the busy extra work on the side. It's taking away from their sales time.
Absolutely. So here's what I would say to any sales executive that wants their people to use the system. Can you use it? Would
question.
you log in? Yeah. Would you use that system?
Take the time to use it.
Would you retype things or cut and paste it from here to here? And the answer is absolutely I wouldn't do that. then we need to look at implementation. Very similar to the idea of content, but it's how it's set up. Is information and data flowing from systems where it resides into something like an outreach or sales loft so that I can just do this more quickly and easily than I could do it manually?
Yes.
So I see that a lot as well. The third thing that I think we need to think about here is whether or not this is something that is going to help the customer.
Yeah.
So we get a little too internally focused. And so a sales executive says, I want this data.
Right.
Or maybe we're even to the second level of maturity here where we're saying, no, we're going to make it easier for our salespeople to do their job.
Right.
The third question is,
right.
How does it impact the customer?
Right.
In fact, that we might need to make that the first question.
Yeah. They're the most important thing.
Exactly. So, for example, if a customer is receiving messages that are, let's say, too frequent, right? Every day they're receiving something. There's going to be naturally some resistance to that. Here's one of my absolute pet peeves. Now, we know that when we put somebody in a sequencer like that, you have to add phraseology at the bottom that says, if you want out of this, you can opt out.
There's a way.
But it's the way that we write that and the way that's phrased that if we kind of are inviting them to opt out, or if that's made too obvious in the message, then they're just going to get out of that thing.
Yeah.
So we have to be adding value to the customer.
Right.
If the content is just about our latest special, that may not be useful to them at all.
Yeah.
But if, let's say, we're offering a white paper on 6 ways to get more value out of the technology that we provide, well, then that might be something that's useful to them.
They would keep it and say, I don't mind receiving it because it's giving me value for my business.
That's right. Helping me do my job more easily. So that's the third thing we have to think about is it actually helping customers?
Love it.
To better understand who we are and what we're doing and how we can help them improve their business.
Yeah.
So I actually made a list here of 9 reasons that I wanted to cover of why people might not be using these things that are provided to them. So I'm going to kind of cover these list of 9, okay?
Are we going 1 to 9 or 9 to 1? Just kidding.
That's a good question. I'm going to do that later. I'm going to start low and work up to the number 1, the countdown.
The countdown. Are we going countdown?
And number 1, as you've been waiting for.
Are we taking notes? Which one? Yeah.
So these are just going to be 1 to 9 because I don't know if they're any particular order.
All right, so get your iPads out, piece of
ready
paper,
to take
write
notes
it down.
here. So number 1, they might just simply be people who are absolutely unmotivated.
Shouldn't be in sales, probably.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
But that speaks to potentially 2 root causes there. Number 1 is it might have been a bad hire.
Yeah.
Or a bad promotion.
Yeah.
Because many times a salesperson, somebody comes into sales being promoted from a customer service position, or maybe even a technical position.
Right.
You mentioned your husband is in pre-sales, right?
That's
Oversees a team of pre-sales.
Right.
Sometimes we'll take a pre-sales product expert, make that person a salesperson now.
Yeah.
And we might be asking them to operate outside their gifting.
That's right. It might not be a fit for them.
Might not be a fit for them. So we're looking for people who are pretty aggressive for these roles, hungry, if you will. So we have to look at the reasons why they'd be motivated to do some things or what might be, let's say, demotivating. And there's a whole series of things that would demotivate people, and I got that on the list. Number 2 is fear.
Okay.
So I know that for me, when I came into sales, I was absolutely just gripped by the fear of talking to people. I had a really rough upbringing, went through a lot of bullying through school and a very, very low self-image and very low confidence. But I met people who were making a lot of money in sales.
Yeah. You're like, I like what they're doing.
I want part of that,
I'm afraid of it a little bit.
Sign me up. But I was scared to death of the no or occasionally even the hang up that happens in some situations.
The rejection.
The rejection, which I took personally. And so there's that fear that goes with that. And I want to point something out. I read this recently. I love this. People, it's not fear of rejection.
Right.
Or fear of failure. It's the fear of the public humiliation.
Interesting.
That comes along with failure.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Because a lot of times we just accept it because it's the way of the world. There is rejection, there is failure, but it's when other people notice it or they are aware of your failure or your rejection, a lot of times that's when it really hits kind of the soul of a person.
And let's give a real-time example here. So we get a team of salespeople on some sort of a forecast telephone call review. And somebody's got an opportunity in their pipeline and they haven't done a great job of qualifying that.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't met all the right people they need to meet. They haven't asked all the right questions, or they're not maybe taking the steps it takes. Sometimes the humiliation that comes along with the attack from the executive, or sometimes even peers, makes people not want to say anything next time.
Right.
And so this fear of the shame of humiliation or the fear of rejection, fear of failure, that's a factor in all of this. And we're going to talk about in some future episodes ways to overcome that. In fact, I'll have an episode just specifically on helping salespeople get past the fear.
Let's do
of
it.
all these
I
things.
love that.
Number 3 is confusion. So they don't know what to do or exactly how to do it. They get confused about what am I supposed to put into this system before I use it, or they're using it wrong.
Right.
And if they don't understand, here's the way I think of it: is when you confuse, you lose.
Great way to say it.
Because if they don't understand what they're being asked to do, they're naturally going to hesitate.
Exactly.
Naturally. That's only logical human behavior. They don't want to fail. They don't want to do it wrong.
Right.
In fact, I heard somebody say the other day, this is pretty neat, a new acronym, FOMO.
FOMO instead of FOMO.
Yeah, FOMU, the fear of messing up.
Oh,
How about
I like that one. I think I'm going to use that one on the kids.
Exactly right. Don't get FOMO.
Don't
Step
FOMO.
in there. So if they don't know kind of what and how to do things. Now that's different though than what we're going to talk about in a little bit, which is the technical capabilities of the system and how to use the system. We're talking about maybe the context around it, which we'll get to in a second. Conflicting priorities.
Okay.
So we're asking them to do too many other things.
Yeah.
And the common feedback from a sales pro, I'm not using this system because I don't have time.
Right. They like we've said before, they have so many things they're trying to do in a day, and unless it has a value to them and the customer, it may be filler stuff, which everybody has a life as well. Yeah. So after hours, you've got other things to do, not just fill in the blanks.
Oh, let me just tell you something. So I talk to a lot of sales leaders and salespeople for work, and I have for the last 24 years.
Yeah.
I believe the number one problem in the sales profession today is that we're not giving salespeople enough time to sell. We've got them so busy on internal conference calls and filling out spreadsheets and using tools that they don't see a great deal of value in, that the number of minutes available to actually make a phone call or send an email or drive over and see somebody are at a premium. And I would dare say, I've seen some studies on this. I should have had that ready and pull it up, but I didn't expect to mention this deeply, that we spend more time doing non-sales stuff every week than we spend doing things that are related to sales specifically.
Love to see those percentages.
Well, I prepared some notes on this, and let's diverge from that list for just a second because there are only 7 things, as I've kind of defined them here, that are actions that actually move a deal forward.
Okay.
And I just wrote this down. And of course, most companies have their own internal sales process and the steps of the sale. And of course, if it's done well, they've aligned these steps of the sale with the steps their customers need to take in order to buy.
Correct.
And that's a whole other topic. We're going to cover that in a different episode. But here are 7 things. I just wrote these down because we need to keep this in mind. 7 actions that move a deal forward. Number 1 is to get a customer to respond to some kind of outreach or some kind of a touch point that I send out, right? Okay. So that's the first thing. Yep. And I need to focus on doing as many of those as I can in the time allotted available to do that. The second thing is to schedule or conduct that first conversation. Right. So the first thing is I got to get them to respond. Then I need to have a first conversation, which hopefully leads to, it could be a separate meeting around discovery, or where we're going to literally create a sales opportunity by defining their current state and their desired future state and
what they're looking for.
What has to get them from here to there, or maybe even qualifications. So that's number 3 is discover, create, and qualify.
Okay.
Number 4, I included this because I believe so strongly in this. Here's another thing that moves deals forward is expanding your relationship footprint.
Absolutely.
Within your customer's organization.
Yes.
That's worth spending time on.
It really is.
And I dare say, I don't mean to oversimplify this, But I think we can prove, and just anybody that's been doing this a long time will tell you that your success rate in closing complex deals is directly proportionate to the number of key people you know within that account.
100% believe that. I am a huge networker person. I believe that as you take the time to go to some of these networking events, as you meet with people and get to know their business, and then you get to know their friend, I have literally seen people's lives change because they have made connections that lead them to a sale or lead them to a job for that fact.
Absolutely.
So,
And so if you think about a complex sales opportunity, there are so many different people that may have a say in that along the way that if I get a chance, let's say the reverse, if I don't ever get a chance to meet, let's say, the technical approver, or the financial approver, or the contract approver, or the outside consultant that they hired to advise them, or the lady in procurement,
or anybody else,
the CEO who's going to provide final approval, any one of those people that I don't meet and build a relationship with, if they don't know who I am, the likelihood of them deciding to spend $1 million with me goes way down. They don't even know who we are.
They didn't know your name.
Right.
Who's this person? Yeah. They have to know you.
Number 5 would be to present a solution or a plan. So after we've gone there, we've done some sort of discovery, we've created an opportunity, we've built some relationships. At some point, we're going to present a solution or a plan, and here's how we think we can do to help you.
Wonderful.
So that drives a deal forward. Number 6 thing that drives a deal forward is presenting a proposal or pricing or both.
Right.
So here's the proposal, here's the terms and conditions, here's what it's going to cost, here's what we suggest in terms of a timetable for all of this. Presenting that, obviously, is a key part of making the sale.
Absolutely.
And then number 7, close and negotiate. Now, I combined those two because I think that when we lay a proposal out, if it's well written, that we need to try to close on the proposal as it's written. And if they don't want to buy that, then we'll negotiate.
Yes.
So I see sometimes these are broken out into 2 steps. We got a negotiate stage and a close stage.
Yeah.
Well, that assumes that there's negotiation. Here's the proposal.
Right.
Now let's negotiate, which means I know you're not going to agree to this.
Yeah. Right. You already know the outcome.
Yeah. You're already. I know that you're going to push back. You're going to ask for discounts. You're going to want a different kind of payment schedule. If the proposal's well written, let's try to close on that first.
Yes.
And then we negotiate if necessary.
Right.
Now, here's the reason I made this list of 7 things. I'm going to repeat them.
Okay.
Get a customer to respond to something.
Yep.
Have a first conversation. Discover or create or qualify.
Yes.
Number 4, expand relationships. 5, present solution or plan. 6 is present your proposal and pricing. And 7 is close and negotiate contract. Here's the reason I'm bringing this up.
Yeah.
Anything we're asking salespeople to do that is not related to one of those 7 things is not driving deals forward.
So true.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if we're looking at why can't I get salespeople to do fill in the blank, if it's not tied to one of those 7 things, they're actually making a smart decision.
Yeah,
they're actually realizing that that's not as high a priority as some of these other things.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that some non-sales activity isn't important.
Right. Of course.
But we need to get our priorities straight.
Yeah. If those things aren't in line, then what are the other things actually doing? You know, this should be the things that you're checking off, all 7 of those.
Yeah.
And then if there's time, we can go to 8, 9, and 10.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so this is I think that as leaders, we need to look at this and recognize, are we giving people time to do those 7 things?
Yes.
And if we're not, we're doing it wrong.
Right. I loved your question earlier too. You said, to the CEO, to the executive, to the leader, manager, whatever the title is, are they taking the time to do those things? And if they're not able to do them, then how can we require that of the salesperson?
Yeah.
You know?
So that's a tricky one, I think, sometimes because, the senior vice president of sales is not making cold calls.
True.
But if he or she were to reach out, would the system we're using the salespeople to use, would they be able to use it?
That's exactly
Could
was
they
my
figure
point.
it out?
Right.
Would they think, oh, this is just cringeworthy. I don't want to use this thing. Or in some way, it's so much overhead that it's wasting my time.
Right. And that's really the question of, are they able to do it, not necessarily on a regular basis, because that's not their job, but is it something that they would say, I've tried it, I've done it, I think you can do it too?
Yeah.
Good,
I believe in it.
I believe in it.
And I did this, and so if I'm willing to do it, you should be willing to. That's a good one right there. Okay, back to the list of why people don't do things.
The 9, here we go.
Could be a time management issue.
Yeah.
Which is directly related to conflicting priorities.
Yes.
Right? Because we're asking people to do a bunch of other things, or it could be just a personal distraction.
Right.
I don't have my priorities in order.
Right.
And so I show up to work and I handle all these busy work tasks and dealing with customer service issues. And maybe at the end of the day, if I get around to it, I'll reach out to a client to sell something.
Right.
It's got to be the reverse.
Exactly.
So time management could be a big piece of it. Too complicated, too much friction. I mentioned that. Here's a couple, though. Discouragement, which is for real.
Yeah.
And in today's world where so many of us are working remotely or working from home and we're just simply not working together.
Right.
We can't like lift each other up and dust you off when you get knocked down. Right. Discouragement is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to sit in their spare bedroom and be excited.
Right. Where are they getting encouraged? How are they getting motivated?
That's right.
Who's kind of giving them that pat on the shoulder kind of thing? Yeah.
In another episode, we're going to talk about ways to battle that. But community is crucial in this business, because if we don't have that kind of support system around us, then all by ourselves, our customers will and the marketplace will beat us down.
Yeah.
I thought about this. You know how when you are cooking like steaks out on your barbecue grill, if you're using briquettes, remember those old briquettes we used to use? You can take the hottest, most bright red briquette that's in the middle of that thing, that's the hottest on fire, take it out of that and put it over here by itself, and it's turned black, doesn't it?
It's dead.
Even the hottest one by itself can't stay hot.
Yeah. That's such a good analogy.
They have to be together to keep each other focused and fired up, to use that term, right?
Keep it going.
Overload and burnout, which is kind of just the extension of discouragement, or just asking too much of people.
Right.
Which is a for real thing. It's an absolute for real thing. We need to recognize that. And then number 9, the last one. Lack of knowledge or skills.
Yeah.
The reason I put that as number 9 is here's the mistake I think a lot of times that we make, is that we feel like that we have to teach them how to use the tools.
Yeah.
So we spent $5 million on this new coaching platform.
Right.
And we want our sales managers to use this coaching platform, and we want our salespeople to respond on that. Or it could be even a CRM system or some module that plugs into that, or some other kind of mechanized tool. And are we asking people to do something that they don't want to do, or is it that they don't know how to do it?
Big question.
And so if we assume that they don't know how to do it, well, let's just throw more training at them.
Yeah.
Let's do another webinar to teach them how to use the tools.
Right.
Where the button clicks are, how to get the data in, da-da-da-da-da. In essence, if it's not, let's say, it's the word I'm looking for, if it's not optimized to work easily and to save them time, if it takes them more time, it doesn't matter if they know how to do it.
Right.
Teaching them how to do something that's complicated and is not helpful doesn't cause them to want to do it.
No, it's confusing.
So we have to eliminate those roadblocks and variables and kind of what's keeping them from doing things, and then make sure they know how to use it. But I want to wrap this up with a couple of things that I think are really going to be helpful to people to just prioritize what they actually want. I do think that most organizations are asking salespeople to focus on too many things.
Yeah.
Even when I did some research recently, I was talking to one executive and I said, what's the number one challenge you face?
Yeah.
He's leading a team of about 800 salespeople.
Yeah.
What's the number one challenge you face? He said, well, do I only get one number one challenge?
Yeah.
And I said, no, let's narrow it down to your top 10 number one challenges.
Number one challenges. Went from 1 to 10. Yeah.
So point with this is that, we've got 17 priorities here. Who can keep track of 17 priorities? I can't even remember the 17 priorities, let alone execute on them on a daily basis. And so we have to prioritize what we actually want and make what we're demanding and commanding a short enough list that people can actually do it and can focus on it and decide they're willing.
Right. And it's something that they can really keep at their desk in a sense of, this is what I'm needing to do.
Right. If they're pulled in too many different directions, they're not going to get any forward motion on any of them, really. No. So first thing that has to happen then, these are the 4 things, and these aren't in any order.
Okay.
Well, actually, I guess they are in a little bit of order here. The first thing I'm going to say is that we have to think about the culture of the environment we're asking people to operate in. Mm-hmm. And to recognize that it's the way we do it here at the company that people will start to buy into and start to believe in.
Right.
Here's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
If people don't believe that this automation tool is actually worth doing, if it's going to help them, if it's going to help the customer, they're not going to want to do it. And so we're going to have to change the thinking around it. And as I say, the believing around that. We're going to do a whole separate episode on how to change beliefs, because that's crucial.
Yeah.
We change beliefs by helping people to really recognize different kinds of truths.
Yes.
We provide evidence, success stories.
Yeah.
We get voice of the customer.
Right.
A lot of different mechanisms.
The proof in the pudding.
We can proof is another one. Yeah, like evidence or proof. Bring this in to help people to literally perceive things differently. We need them to draw the conclusion, I want to use this tool.
Right.
As opposed to I'm forced to use it.
Right.
Number 2, we have to sell people on new ways of working.
Okay. How do we do that?
So here's what I'm trying to communicate with this, is that we might let's use a coaching platform, for example. I know a lot of my clients are implementing these where we can have a sales manager type some things to their sales rep. Yeah. And then have the sales rep type some things to send it back to the manager. Yeah. So that we're coaching and guiding and hopefully advising the sales rep on how to do things differently so they can have better results.
Right.
In my opinion, typing to each other is exactly the opposite of what we need. Yeah. We need people talking to each other.
Communicate.
And I mean, writing is, there's something good about it. I mean, you've documented what you've said. You've documented what you're asked. I understand that. But part of the sales leader's job is to encourage and motivate and inspire. Yeah. Emails just don't inspire. Right? Typing just doesn't inspire that much. But we have to sell people on new ways of working. Here's something I like to say often, is that when somebody is promoted to sales manager, one of the biggest mistakes they can make is stop selling. Yeah. I'll explain. I don't mean they're going to continue to call customers the way they did when they were in the sales rep job. Right. They have to now sell the people on their team on new ways of working.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So
good point.
Here's the point about this idea of a coaching platform. If we try to implement a coaching platform where they don't understand the value of coaching or even want to do coaching, they don't believe coaching is going to help them, then the platform is just going to make matters worse. Yeah. We have to sell people on new ways of working manually a lot of times before we automate it. So here's what number 3, teach them the process manually. Yeah. Persuade them, sell them, and this is what we do in our workshops. We spend all of our time helping people think differently.
Love it.
About why to do things before we teach them how.
Because if you don't know why you're doing it, then you don't really want to do it.
You don't care how.
You don't care.
So when we're sitting there teaching them how to use the system, they got their arms folded, lean back. I dare you to teach me something. Right. I don't want to use this doggone thing anyway.
This isn't going to work.
Exactly.
How many times have we said that when a new system or a new way comes about? I remember even when some of the social media platforms came, no one's going to use it.
Right.
It's used all the time.
And now it's 6 hours a day.
Right. It's a part-time job. Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? So we have to teach people and sell them on why to do it. Teach them how to do it that's not automated first. Yes. Get people excited about the regimen or the discipline of coaching. Then when you provide an automation tool, they're going to say,
it's a helpful thing.
This is so great because I've been doing this. Right. I'm coaching my salespeople now. Yes. I'm getting better at helping them they're doing their job better. I'm coaching them on how to do it better. I'm feeling more confident now as a leader, and I'm working with my team to improve their performance in several different areas. Right. Now you're going to give me a tool to make it even better? Right. Sign me up.
Give it to me now because it helps me. It helps me, helps them.
We'll go back to this idea of automating processes around, let's say, Outreach or Sales Loft, one of these sequencers, a lot of times when we're asking people to use this, they have not yet been convinced that it even makes sense to reach out to people 5 or 6 or 7 different ways.
Such a good point.
So in our workshops, our digital selling transformation workshop, we call it, we spend the majority of the upfront time helping people arrive at the conclusion that I have to sell differently today in today's market because customers are buying differently.
Yeah.
So if I have to sell differently, it means I'm going to have to use different kinds of approach patterns.
Right.
And when I'm using different approach patterns and different kinds of tools, I'm going to have to probably approach them in a variety of different ways to do that. And we'll look at some statistics, for example, that say that the average customer won't even respond until we've touched them in some way.
Wow.
I think the average right now is about between 6 and 7 touches to get a response.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm a salesperson and I don't believe that it's true,
right,
I'm just going to send one email and expect a response?
No.
I'm going to send an email and I'm going to leave them a voicemail.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the average takes 6.5 touches. That means if it's average, half of them will respond in less than 6.5.
True.
But the other half are going to take more than 6.5.
Right. Or never.
Or never. Exactly. But even of those who do, it's going to take more than. But one of my clients, this is incredible. They're using one of those automated sequencing tools. The biggest deal that they've brought in using that tool, that they found and created using that tool, about a $5 million deal. So a big deal.
That's big.
It was the 9th outreach touch.
Wow.
That got the customer to respond before they actually got a response, which led to a meeting, which led to all the other things I just listed in my 7 things that have to happen. But until they get that response, none of the rest of them really matter.
You can't go to number 2 unless number 1 is checked off.
Unless you get number 1. And so that's what I want people to think about, is thinking about, again, these 4 things, is the culture of what we believe.
Yeah.
And drawing people to a new conclusion about here's the way that people are buying today, and we need to sell in a different way. So it's really this belief structure. Number 2, sell people on new ways of doing things.
Right.
Convince them that this is going to help them, and then show them.
Yeah, you gotta. I am a visual learner.
Proof.
All day
Here's
and
how
night.
it works. And we've got evidence that your colleagues are seeing success with this. And if you'll take these steps and you start to see success, then we need to teach them, I like to think, teach them the process manually.
Yeah.
Show them how to do this.
Absolutely.
If they can't do it in a manual way, then they're probably going to resist doing this in an automated way. They're not going to understand why to do it or how to do it.
Right.
And then automate the process. Now, if you've already invested $5 million in one of these, you at least need to go back to number 1 and 2, which is change the culture around the way they think, and then sell people on new ways of working. If you don't want to go teach in the manual route, they at least need to be able to know how if they needed to.
That's right.
And how to take the steps, what we're asking
Maybe
them to
even
take.
who to go to directly if they have a question. You know, make sure those are in place.
Like a help desk, FAQ
a chat
kinds
room,
of things.
Anything that
Slack channel.
That's right. Because sometimes you're doing stuff late at night and you get to a point where I actually don't know what I'm doing here. I'm stuck here. Is there a capability in the system for them to be able to ask that question at any time?
Yeah, that's so good. And then automate the process, to me, comes last. But if we do those other things up front, then when we start to automate this, they understand, they believe that it's going to work.
Right.
They understand why we're doing this. Now I've learned how, when I've been shown how to do it, I'm more likely to do that. So those are my best ideas for how to get people to use tools.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Bill.
You're welcome.